Hello everyone and welcome to our competitive breakdown of Buster Blader, one of the coolest decks that have come from the original Duel Monsters anime, alongside the likes of Blue Eyes, Red Eyes and Dark Magician, which may come once upon a time once those becomes a little bit more affordable. But this is honestly one of the favourite decks I was using while laddering. I would often switch between this and Thunder Dragons, was my sort of go-to at the time, whenever we were getting through Platinum in like the previous season. So this is definitely a good deck. It will work, it will win you games. Is it the best deck in the world? Absolutely not. Has it gotten better as of the newest releases? It has and it hasn't. So the Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer really makes and breaks this deck. So this list you're seeing in front of you, it contains the core Buster Blader combos, the prologue, the dragon, the Buster Blader himself. It contains all of that. But there's also a large section of the deck that is built around summoning the Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer, because it is one of the most powerful cards, not only in this deck, but in the metagame at the moment. And this deck really needs that additional push for when you can't get your combo on board. That's why we're playing the Tinyi engine before someone gets Sword Soul flashbacks. We're not, fully abusing the engine. We're just using it as a way to put multiple monsters on board to summon out Predaplant, Verte, Anaconda. We do have Monk of the Tinyi in there that you can take out. He's just in there really to trigger Vishuda's effect to get bouncing. Sometimes it comes up. But yeah, it's sort of like a half and half split at the minute. Playing pure Buster Bladers, I know people have deck lists on YouTube of playing pure Buster Blader, and they're saying it's all great, look at these replays where we completely destroy them. Yeah, they're playing in Platinum, and this isn't happening every game. They're cherry picking, and I'll tell you that straight up. This is going to be a completely honest competitive review of the best and worst of Buster Blader. Are you going to get to Diamond 1 using this deck? You can. It'll be hard, but you totally can. It is a fun deck. It is effective when it works. I don't believe it's anywhere near meta. It's not even really. It's barely making rogue level, but it's high enough to get you where you need to be. Yeah, we're not going to worry too much about the actual full breakdown of the deck right here, but again, what you basically need to know is if you draw into your Buster Whelp, that's one card combo into both these guys, which will basically create a skill drain on your opponent's field. And usually if you draw at least one of the Tinyis and then something you can normal summon, even if it's a hand trap, you can summon the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer either as well or instead of. So that's a general, very, very quick breakdown of it. Lots of, hand traps, lots of hand trap protection. Other than that, keep an eye on the gameplay and you'll sort of see how it breaks down then. So, on the game number 1. Alright, getting into game number 1. This was actually one of the last games we played, and I wanted to bring it in just as the first game because it's an excellent display of what the deck does when it's at its best. So in this game we're going to see not only the use of the Buster Blader engine itself to great effect, but we're going to see how the synergy with Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer works. We see our opponent's going to basically go for the Fusion Destiny right off the bat, so we're going to max C to at least draw 1, because he's not going to be doing any more summoning this turn anyway. So he's going to summon his Enforcer in defense, we're going to draw 1 card, and what a draw it was. So the Buster Whelp is essentially a 1 card combo. So what we do here is we set a card and we summon our Buster Whelp. We wanted to see if we could bait him into using the Destroyer early. We unfortunately didn't, but that's fine. So we search for a second copy of the main trap. We use our own Fusion Destiny then to summon the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer out. We proc his effect to get him to do the same basically. So we've got 2 of the trap card, it doesn't matter which he destroys. And we need a dragon monster in grave to take full effect of the trap card. If you don't know what the trap card does, what it'll do is it'll send Buster Blader and a Destruction Sword card from your deck to the graveyard, and it will summon from the extra deck a Buster Dragon. So what we're going to send then is we send the Buster Blader as a requirement, but we also send the trap card Destruction Sword Memories to the graveyard, because when Memories is in the grave, you can banish it to Fusion Summon, and that's the full combo. So we banish the Memories and chain to the max C here. We want to see if he has anything else. He does have another Call by the Grave. That's why we didn't use the cross out designator. We wanted to see what else he had, so we cross out the Call by the Grave. We don't want that getting banished because that completely stops the play. Call by the Grave is another weak. I think he just wanted to get the chain 5. That resolution ultimately has no impact on the chain whatsoever. We see he summons out a Kitchen Dragon, which probably would have been more valuable in hand. Either way, we get rid of the Call by the Grave. We banish the materials from our graveyard to fusion summon. This means all of his dragons are now going to be forced into defense and they cannot activate their effects. Maxi will allow him to draw one card, but we got our Buster Dragon on board, and what that means is that any monster he plays on his field, as you'll see here, becomes a dragon. And dragons get negated and switch to defense, so his Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is also completely negated. The fact that he's playing a dragon deck just sort of adds to this energy, but it doesn't define it, as you see here. So he draws 2, he sets 1, we're going to pop using the Phoenix Enforcer, his Kitchen Dragon's going to be returned as per the trap card's effect. Then we're going to move into our standby phase, we're going to get our Destroyer back. Now the big boss himself, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, he does piercing damage, so we swing over the Chambermaid for 3k, we swing into the Destiny Hero, and we hit him directly for 1200. Now, the con of the trap card summoning the Buster Dragon is at the end of the following turn it gets destroyed, so we have to use it this turn, otherwise it goes to waste. So we summon our level 1 Whelp, and we use it to go into the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Once per turn we get to negate any face-up card, so this is going to help protect us from the Phoenix Enforcer. If he tries to proc it, it gets negated. He realizes that it's all but game over at this stage, and he gives up. So that's a fantastic showing of, you know, we got the full Buster combo in there. We didn't get the extra Duck Block, but it didn't matter. We got the full sort of skill drain up, we got the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer up, and we got the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which is a cool thing. On the turn after the Buster Dragon gets summoned, it gets destroyed. So you want to make use of it before it ends up going to the graveyard. For example, summoning a level 9 Synchro Monster by using any of your level 1 tuners. You play a whole bunch of them. You can use it to go into, if you haven't already used the fusion, you can use it to go into Predaplant for Anaconda. You can use it to go into Crystron Hacky Fibract, use it to go into whatever, but try to use it, otherwise it just goes to waste. But yeah, that is showing the deck doing the best of what it can do. That is probably the best tool with this deck you're going to see here. We do have plenty of other wins, but they don't look quite as sort of smooth and fancy as that one. So let's move on to game number 2 then, and we'll see the difference. Okay, so moving swiftly into game number 2, as you can probably tell from the hand, this is going to be a bit of a different showing. Now, this probably wouldn't be a play we're going to see off the bat, but using our Tinyu Vishuda, we're going to special summon it out as a level 7. Normal summon our Ash, it's a once per turn, we've got 2 in hand, we might as well. That gives us our level 10 for Baron de Fleur. Then we're going to use our Fusion Destiny and summon out the Phoenix Enforcer. So right now, this is still the same deck, but this is what I was talking about when I was saying that it needs that little bit of a push in order to become meta relevant. So what we've got on board right now is an Omni Negate and an Instant Destruction whenever we want. We're playing against Tri-Brigade Zodiacs, so this is a big deck tied with Sword Soul in terms of tournament performance in regards to what is the better deck. Zodiac Tri-Brigades are typically seen as better in a best of 3 format with side decks present, whereas Sword Souls are typically seen as better in a best of 1 format like we use on our ranked. So it's going to go into Trident. We're going to negate Trident with an Effect Veiler because we want to preserve our resources on board. He's going to go into the Borbo as we expected. You know, they typically want to go into a Zeus whenever they're doing their Zodiac plays. So we pop the Borbo whenever it attacks because we do not want to deal with a Zeus. He tries to go for the Fusion Destiny. We Ash the Fusion Destiny. So we're denying another play there. He tries to cross out the Ash. We really don't want to see a Phoenix Enforcer because that is a pain to get rid of once it's out there. So we're going to negate the cross-out designator as well. This does leave our field open. Our Baron, its negate is gone, so right now it's just a super aggressive pop 1 and swing 3k beater. So suddenly the field's maybe not so impressive, but he sets 1 passes. We all know that that one is Revolt, so he activates it in the draw phase before we can even get our Enforcer out, which I think was a misplay. I definitely think he misplayed a little bit there, because the banish from Sure Egg is non-targeting. So he could potentially have played that a little bit better. I don't ultimately think it would have mattered too much, so he summons a Sure Egg. A Sure Egg is going to banish Baron de Fleur. Then in the standby phase we got our Destiny Hero back onto the field. So we're simply going to set 1. We use Celestial to draw 2 first because, you know, we want to get as many cards as we can. We set 1 down. Then we use the Phoenix Enforcer to pop itself and a Sure Egg. Our Phoenix Enforcer is coming back next turn. We set our Call by the Grave. Our opponent sort of realizes that maybe this isn't going to work out very well. We got our Destroyer back and he scoops it up. So the only Buster Blader related card we saw in that game was a hard brick, and that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying the pure Buster Blader isn't it. There are so many 1, singular cards that are hard bricks when it comes to the Buster Blader, that you need these extra engines for them to function. If that makes sense. There's so many bricks you can play. It's just filled. We're building houses over here with the amount of bricks we play in this sort of deck. We've tried cutting down on that by playing these additional engines to speed it up, and that though was perfect evidence as to why. We won that because we didn't play Buster Blader, if that makes sense. That's what I'm saying whenever I mean that if we're playing any other deck that takes better advantage of these cards, you would probably be doing better. But based off of the merit and the power of these cards alone, when used intelligently, you can still win an awful lot of games. And then the Buster Bladers are some nice tech when it comes up. But yes, that's game number 2. Very, very quick one. Let's shift on then to game number 3. Well, a ranked duel video wouldn't be complete without a game against Sword Souls, because you're going to be seeing them a lot. So he opens up the game with Sword Soul Emergence, because I have that in every starting hand. And we try Max C, but we get crossed out, so that's fine. He negates our Max C. We don't have very much interruptible in the hand, but by that same token, he still only has 3 other cards in hand, so he has his Mo Yi. So he summons the Mo Yi, he then reveals a Vishuda in hand, so for him to reveal a Vishuda, for 2 remaining cards to potentially be follow-ups, I'm not so certain. So we hit the Mo Yi with the Effect Veiler, hoping that he doesn't have anything else to follow up right at this moment, and we hit it correctly. So he has no other follow-ups right now, so we need to take advantage of this opening, otherwise we're going to lose. This is where the traditional sort of sense of the Tinny engine came in. We slap the Vishuda on board, we summon our Buster Whelp, which would have searched for our trap, but it gets negated. We don't even care about that. We're just happy that the Veiler is gone, so we can't use it on something else. So we're going to use these 2 then to go into Predaplant, Verte, Anaconda. You have a few options there. You can go into level 8 Synchro, you can go into a few things, but I think the Anaconda play here was best, especially after his Veiler. He only has 1 card in his hand we didn't know, so for it to be a usable hand trap seemed a little unlikely. So we'll summon out our Destiny Hero Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer. We'll set 2 cards. The first card, the Memories, as well as its effective fusion summoning Grave. You can also discard a Destruction Sword card to summon a Buster Blader from deck. We don't have any discard targets. More importantly, our other trap card, Trap Trick, allows us to banish a normal trap in our deck to then play that same normal trap to the field, and we can use it on that turn. So we'll banish a Prologue to set a Prologue, and we can use that Prologue this turn. So he summons Ecclesia, banishes the Ecclesia to summon the Mo Yi, you know, typical Sword Soul nonsense. So we flip up the Prologue, we flip it up a little too late. We should have done this in the draw phase, but, you know, no use crying over spilled milk, it's already happened. So we send our stuff, we activate the Memories in Grave, we banish the Whelp, we banish the Buster Blader, we fusion summon into the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. So he's out on the field, 2800 beater, and the Prologue then will summon out the Buster Dragon. Now, this doesn't negate their effects, but it prevents them from activating their effects, so technically the token is still summoned, but before you can get any ideas of that Vishuda, we use our Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, pop the Predaplant, pop the token. He had no follow-up, we already knew that, and that is game. So that is Buster Blader destroying the Sword Soul matchup. Does that happen every time? Definitely not, but it happens more often than you'd think. It's honestly not a terrible matchup if you have a decent-ish hand and you go first. If you go second, then you just lose. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because they just keep their Baron negate for your Prologue, and they all know to keep it for Prologue. So that's fine. That's another good showing of the deck against the top tier deck. So we've beaten Sword Souls and Zodiac Tri-Brigades in this video. So don't let my comments put you off. This deck can and will win games. It is 100% powerful, it is 100% viable, so don't be put off. It is a super strong deck if you can get it to work. Even my version of it's still going to require a lot more sort of tuning and breaking down, but I feel like it's really getting somewhere, so I wanted to put this out to show that a lot of the decks you see out there maybe aren't as competitively geared. This isn't so much a pure Buster Blader deck, but more a competitive one. Whereas like a regular pure Buster Blader deck would not have been able to win that game. But either way, that does it for game number 3. We're going to get one more game in then, and that'll wrap us up for 4 duels. So let's get on with duel number 4. Alright, let's dive right on into duel number 4. So this will be wrapping up the video here. We see we're starting off with the Whelp in hand, which is, as I said before, a 1-card combo. On summon, it searches for the trap, but on summon, without fail, it gets negated. It's a very, very negatable target. It'll almost always eat a negate, but that's fine. We send it to the graveyard for Linkuriboh. We do have the trap trick in hand, so we don't need to worry about needing to search for the trap. So we're fine eating that Ash there. We probably should have used the trap in the draw phase again. We made that sort of mistake, but we wanted to see what he was doing first. So he summons his trap trick. So we're playing against trap trick in this game, obviously. This duel is here to show the grind game, or more specifically the lack thereof, in the Buster Blader deck. One of the innate weaknesses of the primary trap card, the Prologue of the Destruction Sword, is that the Buster Dragon it summoned at the end of the following turn gets destroyed. So it doesn't necessarily have the longevity that you would sort of want to have. It's like a 2-turn skill drain, which is usually significant and usually enough, but in this case we're playing against a trap-based deck. So it falls outside of the scope that this combo would normally handle. We are sort of switching his monster to defense and negating it. He then goes into Trap Trick Sarah, who again becomes a dragon and is negated. So we don't need to worry about her using her effects this turn, but as we said, they don't necessarily need to use them on this turn. So we draw into Adhara. We're just going to go straight to battle. We want rid of that card. He uses his compulsory evacuation device. Suddenly his Trap Trick Sarah is alive. He uses its effect. We just want to get any sort of draw or card advantage in. Right now we are in a lot of trouble. He's returned our swordsman and our dragon is about to be destroyed. So we summon the Adhara, hoping to make some sort of use of the dragon. So we synchro summon then. Level 1 and our level 8 will give us our Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which is once per turn negate any card face up in the field. He tries to floodgate us, so we use our Abyss to negate the floodgate. So very, very good. We're getting rid of his trap cards then, just, you know, chipping away at them one by one. Abyss is very strong in this matchup, but we have already used our battle phase, so unfortunately that Sarah stays on the field. Then he tributes us for a Kaiju. Kaijus have to be one of my least favorite things in the game. I feel I just always get beat by them. I never play them, so maybe I should try it. Maybe I'm complaining for no reason. So he's going to then link summon into Predaplat Verte Anaconda because, you know, only about 170% of decks use it. I say ironically as I use it. So he's going to fusion summon here into the Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, who would have guessed. Then he's going to get swinging. Another effect of the Destroyer is he also reduces your opponent's attack points by 200 for every hero in the grave. You innately have 2. So my Kaiju is actually smaller than the Phoenix Enforcer. So he does that. He pops our back row. The back row was mostly useless, so it's not that big of an issue. So his Phoenix Enforcer comes back. We go to summon our Vishuda. Then he uses Gravedigger's Trap Hole. He negates and banishes us, which puts us in a really rough spot. We also take the 2000 damage, so we're... Oh, he doesn't banish us, sorry. But even then, not being able to summon that Vishuda really hurts. And he just gets the Floodgate back, and he gets his Floodgate Trap Hole, he has his Gravediggers back. We tried to do the same with the Vishuda, we summon it out. We link summon into our Monk of the Tenyi. This is part of why it's here. So using Monk of the Tenyi then, we're doing nothing. We get immediately popped, we have no plays in our hand. And we're on the other side of the scope here. We just have to hand in our resignation here. Yeah, so that shows a complete lack of grind game. And if your opponent is playing a deck that doesn't rely upon monsters, then this deck is at a significant disadvantage. Usually that's where the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer and potentially the Vishuda comes. So we were trying to bounce a card with Vishuda rather than do anything else. We weren't really trying to summon it. That's where your Phoenix Enforcer and some of your other sort of spot removal cards that the deck doesn't natively play comes in handy. But there just comes a point where enough is enough. The deck is not invincible, even if you get the combos off, and that was a demonstration of this here. Even if you get the combos, you're not guaranteed to win, especially against a more back row heavy deck. But yeah, that's game number 4, so we've shown a lot of the deck's strengths, we've shown a lot of its weaknesses. From this gameplay, you can see that it is strong enough to compete, it's strong enough to win games. Is it the best deck in the game? Not by a long shot, but it can definitely compete, and we have beaten some of the best decks in the game using it, as you know, this video being evidence. But yeah, so let's dive into the deck profile. We'll cover a couple of the combos in a bit more depth, but honestly the deck is very customizable at the moment, purely because nobody really knows the best way of playing it. So I'll cover sort of why I've made some of the choices I have, and then we'll take it from there, and you can make your take of it after that. So onto the deck profile. So this is the deck profile from the replays you were just seeing there. It has evolved a lot over time. I'm a bit more comfortable playing it like this. It feels a lot more powerful. We were winning a lot of games, although there are some other versions of it that I want to try out. So what is the goal? What makes it Buster Blader? So this card here, as I'm sure anyone who's played Buster Blader before will know, this card is the card you want to see in your opening hand. It is your 1-card combo, your Buster Dragon Lock combo. So you normal summon it, it will grab the trap card Prologue of the Destruction Sword. Then you would send your Buster Whelp to the graveyard in a Link summon for Link Karibo if it's the only thing on your field. Now you've got a Dragon engrave. During your opponent's draw phase, you activate Prologue. Prologue will send Memories and the Buster Blader from your deck to the graveyard. You now have Memories, which can banish to fuse in the graveyard, your Buster Blader, and a dragon in your grave. So you chain to it Memories. Memories banishes the Buster Blader and the Whelp to fusion summon. So this lets you summon the Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. While he's face up, all of your opponent's dragons switch to defense and can't activate their effects. And when Prologue resolves, it will summon the Buster Dragon. The Buster Dragon, so long as it's face up, all of your opponent's monsters become dragons. So essentially what happens is off of 1 card, your opponent can no longer activate monster effects on the field, and all of their monsters on board become dragons, which does come up here and there, especially in a metagame dominated by worm type monsters. So that is something to bear in mind. So where does the rest of the deck come in? So the other notable engines is the Tenyi. You see Buster Blader Tenyi I've got up here. Which ones of them specifically you play doesn't matter. So I play 3 at Hara and 2 of each of the level 7s. The reason I play 3 at Hara is if I need to go into a Christian Hulk play, or if I need to go into Abyss, it works an awful lot easier for that, but the level 7s are just as good. Their main purpose is you special summon them before you normal summon the Whelp. Then instead of Link Karibo, you get Predaplant Verte Anaconda, so not only do you lock your opponent out of using monster effects on their field, you also get the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. And the negative side of the Anaconda doesn't impact you because you're doing all your special summoning on your opponent's turn. That's why you almost never get Nibiru'd in this deck, because you very rarely summon 5 or more times unless you're really going off the chain. I had a super sort of cool complex chaos space version of this deck that really sort of went off, and you would have gotten Nibiru'd here and there in that version of it, but in this version you don't need to worry so much about it. So that's the main sort of play. That's why the Tenyis are here, and on occasion they can help you synchro summon. You know, if you need to use a Shuna from Grave with the Monk in your extra deck, you can. You can get a Grand Master out on the field, which is cool. You know, banish one of your Tenyis from Grave to negate. That's fine, that's pretty neat. I don't think I've ever used it yet, but it's cool in theory. And the reason I would like this as the level 8 synchro alternative to the Buster Dragon is if I need to use a Shuna's effect, I'll be locked into worm monsters. So it just means I've got something to summon if I need it. That's fine, and everything else in the deck is literally just hand traps and defense. So you've got your Destiny Fusion engine, like everyone and their mother is playing. Trap Trick lets you banish a normal trap from the graveyard to set another copy of that same trap, like you saw in the replays. You just banish a Prologue to set a Prologue, so that again is another shortcut to getting your Prologue. You've got your Ash Blossoms, a cool combo that come up one of the games. If you can put a level 7 on board, which you play a few of, you can normal summon Ash to go into Baron de Fleur. It came up, it won a game, and I don't have much else to say on it other than that, so do with that as you will. Effective Healer because it's a level 1 tuner and it is sort of useful, and as well as that, it's another cross-out designator target. I will probably play one of it and one Impermanence if I had an Impermanence, but it's a good cross-out target in a metagame where Veiler is becoming more popular with the emergence of Sword Souls, so good target. Nibiru for cross-out target if it ever comes up, but usually it's just to sink an opponent who takes the Max C challenge. You can probably play a third Max C. I only play 2 of it. I don't know why I only play 2 of it, but I do. I only play 1 Call by the Grave. Honestly, I was tempted to cut this. The only reason I kept it in is because I wanted to at least 1 if I needed to banish it off of crossout, and that did come up and that did win me a game. I believe it might have been the first game in the replays, I can't remember. But yes, that's why that's there. So I'm just trying to sort of vary it with the cross-out targets and then 2 Pot of Prosperity, because you might as well. You don't need all of these targets in your extra deck, so you can lose a couple to add an extra card. But yeah, the deck's super duper sort of simple. If you can set Prologue and you have a dragon in grave, you're set. You can also lock your opponent out of their extra deck. This, in this version of the deck specifically, actually never came up. In my older version of the deck, this came up all the time, but in this version of it, it didn't. So I'm probably going to have to tweak this version of it a little bit more to make that more consistent and make it a more prominent feature of the deck. But in the last version I was using, we were able to search the Whelp more easily, but we weren't able to summon it. But we could pitch it to graveyard, or we would have like a Chaos Dragon in grave, something like that. So we wouldn't need the Whelp. You know, there's a couple of differences. I'll maybe make that deck up again and maybe post a video about that one. It was a little bit more Buster Blader heavy, but it was also less competitive. So we'll see where that goes. Either way, that's my take on a more competitive version of Buster Blader with the 10E engine to go into your Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer. Other than that, that pretty much wraps us up. See y'all later.